Hey folks, real quick like here. This is the first belt video of possibly 4. If I post all of them, I don't know if I'm going to post them all or not. Anyway, potentially 4 videos. This is the first one. This was probably the most important one. Simple belt. You can see by the tip there. We just made the template for this. And that's the way it turned out. Turned out great. I did have an issue during the video with the finish, my top coat on it, when I used the tan coat for the top coat, which is what I like to use on belts, but had an issue, big issue. Show you how I fixed it in another video, but just because it's a little longer process, but I did fix it, and you'll get to see some of the result. Anyway, I'm not sure exactly what's going to be in here. I did cut a lot of stuff out of this video because I made a separate video on belt templates. I had some in here. So I just cut a bunch of stuff out of this. I want to keep it short. I wanted this video to be a simple belt, but yet a good sturdy 2-layered belt. And it's kind of a fancy belt anyway. I think the alternate tip design kind of makes it a little fancier, you know. So there it is. Look in the description below for tools and materials that I used on this belt. I'll try to leave all the links down there. Some of them are affiliate links. Go to my Amazon store. Just keep in mind any of the profits that come, or anything that comes my way from the Amazon store or from ad revenue and stuff, always just goes right back into the channel. So that's kind of how I roll with that. Anyway, off we go. Let's get over to the video, get this belt made, and as always, drop me some comments down below. I love to read them. I love hearing what you guys got to say, and I don't mind criticism. If you don't like what I'm doing, tell me you don't like it. If I need to change something, tell me to change something, and then we can have a discussion about it. So there you go. Off to the video. Thank you so much for being a subscriber and watching my videos. I do appreciate it. Most of my buckles will accommodate a 3/16 hole, and the oblong is a 1/4 inch, and it accommodates this buckle. I don't use this buckle anymore, but this is the last one I had. But you want to make sure that you have your hardware selected, because you want to make a hole that's going to accommodate the tongue sticking through the hole, and this one isn't going to fit. You can verify that because I have the 3/16 holes on this end, and you really gotta force it through. So we don't want to use a 3/16 hole, and you want to make sure that your Chicago screws or your rivets that you holes on the other end that you're going to run through here, because you're going to fold this over, are going to go through both layers of leather. I use Chicago screws. These have a 1/4 inch post. I buy mine through Buckle Guy. Tandy has them. Just about everybody's got them. So they're not hard to find. But to accommodate this, I'm going to have to step my holes up. So I've already got these marked on this end. I'm going to have to step them up to a 1/4 inch to accommodate the tongue, which isn't a huge deal. I'll just go ahead, mark them right where the holes, existing holes are that I already marked. And I'm going to go ahead and punch them all the way through so that I'm done with them. On this side, when I go to glue the backing on, then I'll just have to punch them through the backing. Not a big deal. I don't ever want to run my drive punches into my cutting mat. At least not my good cutting mat. My other one I don't care about. That's usually got dye and crap all over it anyway. Now you can use a rotary punch to put these holes in too. Which would be something like this. This one doesn't go up to 1/4 of an inch. 3/16 is the biggest I've got on here, I believe that is. Well, it's not even 3/16. But you can get a rotary punch like this that has a 3/16 or whatever you need on it. The drive punches are just a little easier to use. And I can get a whole set for not much more than what the rotary punch cost. Rotary punches can get kind of expensive. The one I have I picked up at Tandy. You can catch that in my Amazon store as well. Again, I just want to clear out my punch. One less thing to worry about next time I go to punch holes. So we're done with those, except for when we glue the backing on after that's all glued on and ready to go. I think we're ready to glue that on now. I'm going to set my buckle aside. The Chicago screws go with it. I had 2 of them out here. Oh well, we'll set this back in the drawer here. I gotta get that drawer organized. Put my buckle back in the bag. And I picked these up at Tandy a while back. Now if you're using a thin backing, like I said, this is about a 5-ounce backing. I'm going to skive it down a little because where it meets the back of the belt here, I want it to kind of feather it down to nothing. Just makes it a little easier, makes it a little less apt to catch on something. Let's get this out of our way. Time to introduce a different tool. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to skive this down. This is a safety skiver. You can pick these up all over the place. I've got one of those in my Amazon store because it's just a handy tool to have. It can be a little bit difficult to learn how to use. Different portions of this arc on this blade will skive a little differently. So you got to find the one that's going to do what you want. I'm going to probably skive back 3/4 of an inch or so. So I'm just going to make a little mark back there. And there's no real hard and fast rule as to how far back you want to skive back. 3/4 of an inch works for me, but kind of whatever floats your boat. So I like to use this tool this way and just
And then if you compare the two ends, you'll see how much we took off of there. Not a lot, but about half the thickness, maybe a third. And that'll just make it lay nicer against that edge. So, I'm going to get ready to glue this to the back of the other belt. When I had to change my the holes here to 1/4 inch to accommodate the tongue of the buckle, I forgot I got to change the slot here too. So I did enlarge that. I just used some 220 grit sandpaper, wrapped around a piece of dowel. Not dowel, it's an old coat hanger. Repurpose your plastic coat hangers. It's handy. I usually use this for making sight channels and holsters. Works great for that. But it also works great to just wrap a piece of sandpaper around it. Use it to sand out your slot a little bit wider. We'll burnish that a little bit. And then I'm just going to take my beveler and just kind of go around it. And just rounding those edges over a little bit. I already did the backside. Just rounding those edges a little bit just makes that tongue flop around in there a little easier. And then we'll burnish that a little bit too, just to make everything a little smoother, a little nicer. Doesn't take much to do a burnish on it. We'll do that when we dye it. So right now, let's get ready to do some glue. I forgot to grab my glue. I've taken and made a few marks along probably, I don't know, 8 inches, 6 to 8 inches apart. And I'm gonna glue this in sections. It's just easier that way sometimes. This particular case, it's just gonna be easier. This backing is gonna be, when I come to sand it, it's gonna take a little extra time. So I'm gonna have to make them even. So I'm just going to go and do these in sections so it's easier to line it up as I go. Because once you set this glue, it's done. And I want to take it all the way out to the edges. Some people will tell you don't do that. But I want this stuck all the way to the edge. And depending on the leather, sometimes I'll use 2 coats of glue. This should be fine with just 1. If I'm using some of the exotics or chrome tanned, when I'm gluing chrome tanned, I'll use 2 coats. If you work from the inside out and just go off the edge, you kind of tend to end up with a little less glue on the edge, which comes into play when you start sanding. It's a little easier. One of these days I'll get a new glue bottle that's got a better brush in it. I think I'm going on about 5 years with this one. Alright, we'll let that sit for a minute. And then we will stick them together. Stick it down. I'm just gonna, I want to hammer this down because it helps that glue to just set real good, solid set. And that is all there is to that. And then we'll just flip it over and do it all over again. Be able to get down inside here with the brush, and I'll go up to the next mark that I have here. Same on the other side, I have another mark there. I'll just kind of do it all over again. It seems to work for me, especially in this situation where there isn't a lot of extra room here. And actually the belt strap is wider than the backing that I've got, so I really want to try to keep this to the minimal amount of sanding. I would have preferred to have a little wider strap backing, but it is what it is. This one's not going to be quite as thick as most of my belts, but that's okay. That's okay. It'll still work really well. It'll still be nice, good, rigid belt. But it'll be a little fancier because we did a little different deal on the tip there. You can see how my original strap is just a little wider than what the backing strap is. I'll live with that. We'll just sand it down. It'll be okay. But it's kind of like that all the way down. You probably noticed there's a little water staining here. That's not going to be a big deal. It's going to be dyed black, so I don't even think that'll be noticed. But trimming up the edge, that end there, all that entails is taking my little snap knife and just running right along here. Trimmed. Doesn't take much. Then I'll start sanding. Obviously I have to sand everything a little off here and cut. Not a big deal. But like I said, it's the belt itself is much more rigid now that it's just glued on. But I'll just take my sanding stick and hold it like this, and I can kind of go along. And as long as I hold everything as parallel as possible, as vertical, hold my belt vertical, hold my sanding stick as horizontal as possible, I can just go along. It'll probably take me 15 minutes or so to go around the belt, go around the whole thing and even everything up. Just don't want to make you sit and watch all that. So I'll be back in a few minutes. I've gone to these Odin bevelers, They're not terribly expensive, and they work very well. I've been very happy with them. They stay nice and sharp, even on the flanky part of the leather here. It just does a really, really nice bevel, and they're not terribly expensive. This one is the number 5. This is the biggest one. I have the 1, 3, and 5 at this point. I will be getting the 2 and 4 at some point. Just don't have them yet. My brother actually got me this one as a gift. I was very thankful for that. And it is phenomenal. I do like these. For the price, I don't think you can beat them. So I'm just going around. The sanding process kind of leaves a little bit of an edge on there. And you want to kind of get all that off. I did try to round the edges a little bit. A little bit more of that will happen as I go. Just gotta like a beveler that does this job like that. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm not gonna bevel the front side yet until I run my stitch groove. If you have a rounded edge, you can really screw up your stitch groove that way. So I'm not gonna do that. I am just gonna do the back side. And these leave a very nice edge. So let me get that done. And I'll be back in a minute. This is my belt stitch groover. I think I showed you this already. I'm going to start my groove right where my line is here, because I made a line right at the edge of this. When I punch my stitch holes, I'm going to go 1 hole past so that I can have a binding stitch holding this down, the backing down. That way I won't need to go across the backing. You can go across the backing. It's not an issue. You can do it however you want to. That's the beauty of making belts and such. But I'm going to start right at that line with my groover. There's a lot of videos teaching how to use this kind of stuff. I am probably not the best teacher. I like to lay my groover down, get the edge of my the edge of that hole right on my line. And then I'm going to tip it up, keeping this part, the center part here, right up against the belt. So I'm going to tip it up, and then I'm going to kind of rotate the tool a little bit, just a little. Doesn't take much. And just a little downward pressure. And you want to keep that rotation and pressure consistent all the way. If you change it, and along with your angle, this angle that you're holding, you want to keep that all consistent. Because if you change that, it might move your groove. Don't ask me how I know. When I get down here, I made some marks down here already. with my wing divider. So my wing divider will drop right into that groove. So I made a mark down here, right where that groove is going to start, and over here, right where it's going to meet, so I can see exactly where my tool has to start and stop. And that's probably one of those things that a lot of people aren't going to tell you to do. So I was able to just follow around my curve here, which works pretty good. I did get off on my tip though. That was probably the wrong idea. I'll show you in a minute here. Because I don't know if it's going to be something I can fix or not. It is definitely not something I can fix. So you'll see where I didn't quite keep tight against the edge here. It's going to be a little less noticeable once I get it all beveled and all that kind of stuff, but I know it's there and you'll still be able to see it. But we'll see. It'll be a little less noticeable. I want my groove just a little deeper than what it is, so I'm just going to go around it again. And I'll start here. When I get to this end, where it meets up with my line, if I lift my tool, just kind of flick it, it just pops right out of that. I can pop it right up out of there. It really doesn't leave any kind of a mark. No, works okay. We'll just go down the other side. It'll look good. That little spot where I flicked it out, you'll never see that because I'm going one stitch past that. Now down here, I just kind of ended it because what else am I going to do? But it looks good nonetheless. So, punch these other holes. And you can see those look pretty good now. And the tongue of my buckle will fit through them nicely. But that's why I'll show you later why I like the oblong holes after we're done here. Pretty much my next step, I'm going to go around and I'm going to bevel everything again with the number 5 Odin beveler. Leaves a nice, it does. Let's see if I can get that nice close up there. I think it leaves a nice bevel on the edge. It's a rounded bevel as opposed to a squared off or angular bevel. I like it a lot. And that number 5 leaves me just the right bevel that I like on the on belts. I don't want an all rounded edge on it, but I want a little bit of a bevel on there, a little bit more than some people do. I'm someone who likes kind of like that flat edge that you get on some of that stuff. Not punch that through hard enough. Get all my holes punched through all the way. Now I'm going to go ahead and bevel it. I'm not going to make you watch me do that again.